is you all this particular technical session. I understand that you, my all dear participants, they are from different disciplinary background within that social science. So, though that methodological aspects to a certain extent varies from one particular discipline to another, but overall, that methodological issues and the strategies and approaches remain same. So, the topic that I would be discussing with you all is the research design. And as we all, in one way or the other, engage in carrying out different kinds of research, so it is important for us to know certain aspects relating to how we can formulate a research design. What is that research design is all about, and what are the components of a research design, and why do we need in the first place a research design, and what are the different types of research design? These are the things that I will be discussing with you this morning. First of all, to start with, that what is that research design? What is the definitional aspects? How can we define this research design? Research design can be seen as a kind of framework, a plan, or a strategy that is prepared by the researcher to carry out the study. So, since it talks about framework and strategy, both epistemological issues and methodological issues are taken into account while we devise or while we prepare a framework to carry out our study. So therefore, research design establishes that crucial link between the theory or the pattern of thinking, the way the researcher is thinking about a particular issue, and the strategies, that is the practical aspects, that is the methodological aspects. So the epistemological issues or theoretical issues, then you have methodological issues, and also the outcome. What should be the outcome of the research? What should be the result of the research? So all these things are incorporated, or all these things are actively considered when a researcher tries to formulate a particular research problem. So therefore, when we talk about research design, we prepare a framework by considering these important aspects. That means that what are those epistemological issues that motivated us, the researchers, to carry out that particular study, and what could be the possible strategies or activities or methodology or methodological parameters on the basis of which we can carry out the study so that we can expect the desired results. After all, research is carried out to add to the existing knowledge or to come up with some new ideas. So therefore, that is our ultimate objective, so that we come up with certain kind of results which will be useful not only for your understanding, but also for the entire research community and fellow readers for whom you are trying to carry out the study. So that is why we emphasize that research findings should be disseminated so that others will also be benefited from the work. So if that is what the research design is about, that is creating a kind of framework, then question comes, is it a kind of standardized, fixed kind of structure, or is there any scope to modify, or is there any scope to make certain changes within the research design once you formulate it? Research design is always a tentative kind of formulation. As the study progresses, there is every possibility that you can come across, or you realize that certain things may also be included, certain things which further need to be included, so that you get certain clarity on certain aspects of the research design. So here I would like to talk about the Robert Merton, one of the celebrated, or one of the leading sociologists, who tries to establish the link between theory and empirical research. And there he argues that these two domains should not be seen as separate entities. So they are complementary to each other. Theory contributes to research, so also research contributes to the theory. And these aspects has been explained in that popular book that is called Social Theory and Social Structure. And there are many essays in that book, two important essays which will be particularly relevant for to understand these aspects of the research design and importance of theory and empirical research. Two essays that you will find in that book. One essay that is the bearing of sociological theory on empirical research, and another essay you will find the bearing of empirical research on sociological theory. Through these two essays, he has tried to explain how both are related to each other, complementary to each other. Since I told you that research design should be seen as a tentative kind of formulation, which has the scope, and which it is desirable that if at all the researcher feels that something more need to be added, then it can be done. So that argument which Robert Merton argued in these, when you go through these two essays, one of the arguments that he has given in this essay, where he argued that the issue of serendipity pattern is very, very important. What is serendipity pattern? Serendipity pattern refers to that that aspect in the research where it is expected that the researcher might observe certain things which he or she could not, or that all these things that could not occur to them at the time of formulating the research problem. So what Robert Merton would call it as the unanticipated, three things that he has talked about: unanticipated, anomalous, and strategic datum. When a research is carried out, when the researcher goes to the field, there is every possibility that some of the things which might be discovered, which earlier that the researcher could not think of about that. So unexpected discovery of certain things. That researcher will come across certain things which will be extremely important for the research, which he or she could not incorporate while carrying out the study. So that is the what is called unanticipated. Then anomalous. You will find certain things that when you went to the field, that you will observe certain things that will not be consistent with the prevailing theoretical framework, the particular kind of theory that you have used, but the observations or the data or the things that you find in the field that will not go along with that theoretical framework. So, therefore, you will find inconsistency. The inconsistencies that you will find between this theory and the data that you are going to observe, that aspect, what is called the anomalous. So datum or the data that will be observed, which may not go along with that theoretical framework, and therefore there will be inconsistency, and that will create curiosity in the mind of the researcher, that he or she will think about that particular problem and try to incorporate some more things. And then the strategic, that there will be certain kind of observations which will be very strategic for a researcher who is very sensitive towards that theoretical formulation and framework. So what I'm trying to say is that the argument which is given here is that there is every possibility that you would like to modify. You can come back, then modify your research, try to incorporate certain things, and that is why I told you that it should not be seen as a kind of end product, or should be seen as a kind of framework where there is scope to incorporate certain new aspects that you think of are relevant in the subsequent course of the research. So far what we have discussed is that what is that research design is about, and whether it is static or whether that it is a kind of fixed kind of structure. Then let us talk about the basic aspects of the research design. You will find then when we talk about research design, Huff, another scholar that who tried to look at the importance of research design, argued that when we look at the research design, two important components that we always should be very clear about. One is called the organic aspects, another is called mechanical aspects. Organic aspects of the research design and mechanical aspects of the research design. What does it mean? When we say organic aspects of the research design, this basically refers to that we, the researcher, always try to look for or try to find out the alternative combination of subjects, the purpose. We always try to negotiate with it, always try to find out something new, something which will be more significant. And also we use our intuition always, try to establish the relationship between theory and empirical domains, and also that we try to develop our intrinsic interests. So therefore, in other words, these organic components always motivate us for the outcome, that is the mechanical aspects. Mechanical aspects means that what it is referred to as those aspects which will help us to come up with certain findings. There are standardized methodological pattern. There are certain ways through which research can be carried out. So using those standardized pattern, we can come up with certain kind of results which should be open for critical review. So therefore, these organic aspects of the research design always help us to achieve these mechanical results or logical results that will emerge from this kind of procedures through which we will carry out the study. So these organic aspects will always help us or always lead to the mechanical result. So when we formulate a particular kind of research design, these should not be ignored. These organic aspects and mechanical aspects, they are all interrelated, and they should contribute, particularly these organic components always contribute towards these mechanical aspects or mechanical components. Then, if this is what you expect in a research design, then question comes, why in the first place we need a research design? Why research design is so significant? As I told you, research design make our study logical and systematic, because the researcher must be convinced that the kind of perspective which is chosen, or the kind of methods which are picked up to carry out the research, these things have certain rationale, some logic. So therefore, in a research design, when you include all these aspects, either theoretical aspects and methodological aspects, these will help you to carry out the study systematically and logically. So it makes your journey, research journey, easier. Okay, with the help of the research framework, then you can carry out your research work. And also, it is specifies the specific perspective and method that you are going to use. Okay, so in social research, we come from different disciplines. We have our different ways of looking at even that specific thing that we are talking about. We look at it from different perspectives, isn't it? When we talk about, say stratification, okay, stratification in society, that how society is stratified on the basis of class, caste, power, then all these things, gender, on the basis of which then we find the differences, stratifications in the society. We find different occupations. So when we look at this particular issue, different scholars might look at it differently. For example, if you ask these, why stratification exists in society, is it important? How does it exist? Then, if you ask this to a conflict scholar, or that means scholars who are trying to look at it from the conflict perspective, they would always argue that no, it is no, it creates inequality in society. It leads to exploitation, because they think that when you talk about stratification, then some are at the lower in the hierarchy, some are in the higher in the hierarchy. So it perpetuates that kind of unequal social structure. But the same thing, same issue, if another perspective looks at it, that is, say, for example, a functionalist perspective, if it is tries to look at that social stratification issue, then they would say, no, it is functional, it is useful. That they would say each and every, every occupation is important, and therefore all are functionally important. So even though in the hierarchy some are at the lower rung of the hierarchy, some are at the higher in the hierarchy, some enjoy more status, but that is perfectly all right according to them, because every each and every occupation is having its own significance and importance. So what I'm trying to say is the same issue, same problem is defined differently, is explained differently, and therefore they will try to look at the issues and the arguments in that similar way of looking at things, that is from a particular perspective which assumes significance for a particular scholar for that particular point of time and the context. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that all perspectives are important. It is it is it is up to the researcher how to look at it and how to construct the research problem and how to study it. So therefore, the research design, which will be constructed by the researcher, it gives the clarity. It tells you that which particular perspective or theoretical framework through which you are going to navigate or you are going to study the particular problem, and and why that particular perspective is significant to you. So therefore, that research design always helps you to specify the perspective, that is the framework through which you are going to study. Because if it is not specified, and subsequently the study will be carried out and your study will be directionless, that you will carry out a study, but that it will be subsequently, you will get data which will be difficult for you to interpret and analyze. Then of course it helps, the research design helps you to develop some kind of operational plan through which you carry out the study. You have to clarify your objectives. Objectives of the study should be clearly stated. Then methodological guidelines or methodological kind of strategies that you are going to apply, these will also be included in the research design, and that helps you to plan out things or develop a operational plan so that you can execute, you can carry out the study properly. Then most important is that you can justify the decisions or the choices that you have made. As I told you, it is up to you. You have the freedom to pick up any kind of perspective, any kind of techniques, any kind of methodology. But whatever you decide to select, that should not be free from any kind of justification. So there should be, in other words, there should be some justification or there should be some rationale to it why you have selected that particular perspective. So research design helps you to justify so that you are in a position to defend your work and defend your methodological strategy that you have followed and the kind of perspective that you have chosen. So um, uh, in short, the research design provides you a particular route, a direction through which a research will be carried out, and it is based on certain principles, certain justifications, so that the researcher knows that why this particular technique is being applied and why this particular perspective is chosen. So that clarity you get when you have a framework prepared or when a plan is prepared before carrying out the study. Now question comes that how can you formulate if these are the various purposes or these are the significance of the research design, then how will you formulate the research design? Always remember that research is all about systematic way of examining, exploring, analyzing the things. So therefore, critical thinking is very, very important. So whenever you are picking up a particular theme or particular topic, then before you do so, it is always important that you engage yourselves in the critical thinking. That why, what are those things that motivated you to arrive at that decision? So that is very, very important. So therefore, what is important is that the researcher, before selecting a particular, yes, I think, yeah. Anything for you to ask? Okay, so I think there were some background noise disturbances, but anyway. So when we talk about this critical thinking, because unless we engage ourselves in that critical thinking, we may end up with developing illogical research design or illogical decisions. So therefore, thinking process is very, very important, because that will subsequently make your job much more easier in the subsequent stages of the research. Why thinking is important? Because research design is all about taking appropriate decisions. Okay, decisions which are related to your research theme that you are interested, or your population, your universe, your sample, the data source, interpretation. So all these things that I'll be talking about subsequently, which are important components of the research design. So researcher has to take appropriate decision. What does it mean when I say appropriate decision? As far as possible, you as a researcher should be convinced that whatever decision that you are taking with regard to all these issues that no, I'll talk about that you are convinced that the method, the techniques, the perspective, whatever you are selecting for your study, to the best of your understanding, best of your analysis and understanding, that you are convinced that this is the most appropriate technique which will help you to collect the requisite data and subsequently address your research questions and objectives effectively. Otherwise, if you do not take appropriate that decisions which are based on certain methodological principles and logic, if you do not take, then you may end up doing some research, but it will be difficult for you to defend your work, and it will be contested, and then you will have problems in justifying those kind of results and the methodology that you have adopted in the subsequent course of your study. So, therefore, appropriate decisions need to be taken, and that will emerge from the way you are looking at that particular issue and how critically you are thinking about, and of course, your skill and ability to understand the research issues and research themes that you are going to study. So, first of all, let us talk about this. What is that you are going to study? These are the decisions that you have to make when you prepare a framework. The obvious issue comes that no, what would be the theme of your research? What is that? Have you developed any kind of operational, whether it is researchable issue or not? So, how do you select a particular theme or the topic of your research? So obviously, your interest, ultimately, it is your interest that that will motivate you to look at that particular social reality. After all, you are free to carry out any research or on any theme, but it depends whether that particular theme interests you or that motivates you to carry out or make research inquiry about that particular theme. And also, it is important that whether you are competent enough, you are capable enough to carry out that kind of study. Otherwise, sometimes, as I have seen, that some of the researchers, they apply statistics, but without knowing that whether those statistics are relevant for that kind of study, or whether these have been properly used or not. So, what I'm trying to say is that not only your interest, but you should also evaluate yourself whether if this study if that study is carried out, whether that study is carried out, or can the justice be given or can be carried out systematically to the best of your ability or not. So your interest, your capability, and your knowledge and skill on these aspects will help you out to decide that what you are going to study. So that decision, you as a researcher, you have to take. Then question comes that why you are going to study, the rationale that you have to develop. Then the data source. Remember, data are very, very important when we are carrying out the study. Of course, we look for those data sources. Either it could be secondary source or primary source, but whatever the source is, you look for those data which will help you out to understand that problem and to explain that issue better. So primary data, say for example, if you rely on primary data is the original data which you are going to generate it. Secondary data which are already available to you, and then you can make use of that data, and subsequently you can use it for your analysis. So therefore you have to look for data source, and you should be pretty clear about that these are the sources from where you are going to collect your data, which the requisite data for your study. So you have to be clear that from where you are going to collect your data, what could be your sources of data. Then from whom you are going to collect, that is where you have to be clear about your sampling technique. Sampling technique, you might have studied, you might have some ideas about different sampling techniques. Broadly, when we say that we rely on sampling, because we cannot study the entire population because of the various constraints, practical constraints, resource constraints, time constraints. So what we do, we rely on the sample, representative sample, and using that sample we make a study about that population. But then question comes, you have the options, various options, that you have probability sampling technique, you have non-probability sampling technique. Even within probability sampling, you have different types of probability sampling. For example, you have simple random sampling, you have stratified random sampling, so on and so forth. You have systematic random sampling. So when you have all these options available, you have to decide which one would be more appropriate for the study that you are carrying out. So how will you know that which particular sampling technique will be relevant or appropriate? That depends on the nature of your population. Okay, so what you are going to study, then whether you have a sound knowledge about population, whether you have a sampling frame ready for you. For example, if sampling frame is not ready, you do not know who are the elements who are included in that sampling frame, or from that sampling frame from where you will draw the sample, then of course it is difficult for you to apply probability sampling, because you are going to apply that principles of probability there, where you give equal chance to each and every unit to be selected. Okay, so if you do not know who are there in that sampling frame, then how will you give equal chance to each and every element there? So similarly, you have non-probability sampling techniques. There also you have different choices. You have purposive sampling, then you have you have snowball sampling, then you have quota sampling. So these different sampling techniques, non-probability sampling techniques, are also available to you. There also you have to make a choice which particular sampling technique would be appropriate. Whether you take probability sampling, non-probability sampling, all are having its their own significance. You simply cannot say that this is not good, this is not no, this is bad, this is good. So every technique or every design has its own significance. So what I'm trying to say, whatever decision that you make, that you should be convinced that that is the best technique or best sampling technique which has been chosen for your given study. Okay, so if the study, say for example, demands that you go for snowball sampling because you do not know who are the respondents, and you rely on somebody to find out other respondents. So you have no choice but to select the non-probability sampling. But if you are clear about your population, then you can select the probability sampling. Within probability sampling also, if you want to make it more homogeneous, then probably you have to go for stratified random sampling. If the population is heterogeneous in nature, you should try to make it homogeneous. So here, from whom you are going to collect the data, that also you have to decide, or you have to be convinced that yes, this should be the sampling technique, and this should be my respondent, and so my respondents will be selected using these techniques. So that is the issue about whom, or question about whom you are going to select the respondents. Then question comes, what would be the nature of your study, whether it is qualitative study or quantitative study. Now there is many a times that scholars, they get confused with. So they get confused with that what is qualitative data and quantitative data. Then they go for the simple statistics, descriptive statistics, and they think then probably this is not a quantitative kind of study. And when they go for qualitative study, they do not go deeper into the issue. They do not spend time to collect data on qualitative attributes, and they end up collecting some data on categorical statistics. Okay, so and they simply use the tabular form and they analyze those things. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that you should be, as a researcher, you should be clear whether you are going for, or your study will be qualitative in nature or quantitative. Qualitative, you are giving importance to the perceptions and meanings, the way individuals or your respondents try to understand or try to develop their perception about a particular issue and particular problem. Quantitative, on the other hand, you have a standardized format. Then you start collecting data on those aspects that you have already created in a structured format. Then you come back with those data, and then with the help of measurement, and then you try to explain it. Or you can combine both these if your study so demands that there is a need where qualitative and quantitative data need to be combined. That also you can do it. So whether it is qualitative or quantitative, or a kind of mixed kind of combination of study that you are planning, that should also be clearly stated, or that should be made clear. Then, if all these things are clear to the researcher, then question, of course, comes then, how will you get that data? You are clear about your data source, you are clear about your respondents, you are clear about your population, universe. Then question comes, how, and you are clear about what kind of data that you are going to collect. Then question comes, how you are going to collect your data, or what are those techniques. There are various techniques available. I will not go details into that. There is no time for that. But this much I must say, that you have, if it is a quantitative study, then you go for a standardized kind of structure. And if it is a qualitative, maybe you go for in-depth interview, participant observation, where you have to spend more time with the researcher, try to get deeper insights, and then try to interpret those data. And if it is quantitative, you come back, if at all you are using a particular scaling technique, particular statistics, that will help you to get some results, and these results will subsequently be interpreted. So now, question comes that when you talk about research design, it is also important to know about the scope of your study. So everybody has the time constraint, resource constraints, and within that, you have to decide what should be, or to what extent, how much, or what should be, because some study, no, they some scholars, they become so ambitious, but they have the time constraints, they have the resource constraints, they want to do study a lot of things, but time doesn't permit, and then they do not have the resources to collect subsequent data. So if that happens, that you will not able to give justice to that kind of research. The scope should be defined, limited, and that is where one thing that sometimes researchers get confused with is the unit of the study, or unit of analysis. Unit of analysis is that entity, and that from whom you are going to collect the data, which will be useful for your study. If your unit of analysis is individual, it could be simple, it could be complex, it all depends. It could be individual, it could be organization. So depending on the nature of your study, that you can decide what should be your unit of study. What happens that they sometimes get confused with the unit of analysis. If you are interested to collect the data, if your unit of analysis is the organization, and if you are collecting data from some individuals, then sometimes that you may not get the requisite data to explain, to analyze the functioning, say for example, effectiveness of an organization or functioning of an organization. So there, unit of your analysis is the organization. So you should be very clear how you can collect data for that particular organization. If it is, say for example, you are interested to study the only one aspect of that, work culture, say for example, work culture of the employees, that you will be collecting data from the employees. So therefore, that should be clear. Unit of study, that it is up to you, again, up to the researcher to decide the unit of study, depending on the objectives and your nature of the study. That has to be clearly stated. Then, of course, you are free to design your research accordingly. There are different types of research design. Briefly, I will talk about, there is not much time. So you might have heard of this exploratory research design, descriptive research design, then you have explanatory research design, you have comparative study design, case study design. Also, you have, when you take time dimension into account, you have you have cross-sectional study design, and you have longitudinal study design as well. So it depends that what your research is about, what is your objective, what are your objectives, then on the basis of which you have to decide what could be your study design. Exploratory study design is useful when the research that you are carrying out is not or relatively a new area, is not explored much. Okay, relatively unexplored area. That's something you are going to study it and going to contribute to the existing knowledge, so that others who will pick up their research, they can pick up from those problems and carry out their study. um, then you also have the descriptive study design, which the basic aim of the descriptive study design is to address the issue like what, where, the questions like what, where, um, giving the detailed account of those kind of data that are being collected without addressing the question why. That is the causal relations which is established. That yes, anything? Yes, yes, please. Yes.
Myself learning Dr. Sripat Gaikwad,
Okay, okay,
Jala from Maharashtra. Sir, may I have one question asking you?
okay,
What do you mean by case study design?
okay, okay.
What do
Um,
you mean by case study design?
Case study design. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Case study is a qualitative study design that when you have the option to go for survey design and case study design. Case study design is about studying the minute details of a case. Okay,
Yeah.
it could be an individual, it could be an organization, it could be a village, whatever it is. So whatever you select, that can be studied in minute details. So that is why we select a case study, because
Thanks.
in the survey it is not possible to study every aspects. So if you want to study it further, to have detailed kind of understanding, then we go for case study.
Okay, sir. Thanks,
Okay.
sir. Thanks. Heartily thanks. Okay.
So you can carry out case study design. Also, you can have that survey design. So it is up to you, and then causal connection that if you are establishing between these variables, then probably you go for explanatory study design. Then, if time aspect is taken into account, there very briefly I will talk about that you can have cross-sectional study, and also you can have longitudinal study. What is cross-sectional study? Cross-sectional study is about the data when study is confined or data are obtained from a single group of respondents at a single point in time. Okay, single group of individuals at a single point in time. So, but if you are interested to understand the changes that are taking place over time, probably this particular design will not help you much. So that is why there is another option to carry out the longitudinal study design, where no, you can look at things that are taking place over a period of time. So data collected at multiple points in time from multiple if the same sample is selected, the data can be collected from the same sample at the different points in time. That is one form of longitudinal study design, what is called the fixed panel design. If you go for that different points in time and from different sample of respondents, then also that option also can be exercised, what is called fixed sample, that is called repeated cross-sectional design. So that fixed sample, which you select only one group of respondents, and then at different point of time. But here in the repeated cross-sectional design, you will have different point in time and different sample from the same population. And also, you can also have event-based design. If you are interested to study the people who are product of a particular happening, okay, that is called cohort, that is particular event. Say, for example, COVID. Today, we all are going through this COVID situation. So we are all products of this unprecedented situation. So therefore, we have to study that researchers, they can study what the respondents respondents would think about the pandemic situation, because we have experienced it. So we can have better account about that particular issue. So event based. So they are product of a particular event. So these are different research designs are available to you, and it is finally, as I said in the beginning, it is up to the researcher. Your thinking process, your understanding of the epistemological issues, your methodological issues, and your objectives of the study, all these will determine that which kind of study that subsequently you are going to carry out. Okay, I will stop here because you have another session coming up. If you have any question, so I'll be happy to answer.
Participants, we have 2 more minutes, so you can please forward your question.
Yeah, so I cut short my presentation so that if you have any queries.
Well, sir, you have taken up many research projects from UGC. So,
Okay.
can you say, means just in short way, how should we get the proper designing of our this research projects for UGC?
Now, every sponsoring agency has its own guidelines, but some major guidelines remain same. For example, your research problem should be clearly stated. That is the formulation of your research problem. Your objectives should be clearly stated, what exactly you are going to study, because when you are applying for any kind of project, that is a time bound, because they have the limited time, they give you the limited resource, and they also expect some outcomes. So these the results that you find, this should be useful, that should solve some purpose. So therefore, you should be, when you formulate any kind of research or when you are applying for any kind of research project, first thing you should clearly go through what are the requirements of that particular funding agencies. It could be UGC, it could be ICSSR, it could be some other funding agency or research bodies. So go through what are the requirements. But when you formulate your research problem, then this formulation of research problems should be clear, it should be free from ambiguities. And then your objective should be clear. And if at all, if you have a hypothesis, then you have to formulate it properly. Then you also should be clear that how you are going to test those hypotheses, if at all you are formulating hypothesis. Then you should also be clear about your how to meet your time frame, so that you should execute it properly. And when you are applying to a funding agency, then you should also justify your the breakup of your funding sources, no, funding that you are asking for. So that should there should have some justification for that. So, but as far as the research, that component, that content is concerned, you should be clear what you are going to study. As I told you, all these questions, if you address properly, then you will get a very good research proposal. What you are going to study, what are who will be your respondents, in which area you are planning to study, that is, what would be your universe, then what would be your time frame, what would be the expected outcome of your study. So if you take all these things into consideration, I am sure you'll be able to formulate your research problem well. But before that, also you should be clear about whatever techniques that you are mentioning there, whatever sampling frame that or sampling technique that you are mentioning. You should also be clear about those techniques, and that you will your idea on research methodology will help you out. Say, for example, if study demands qualitative data, but in your proposal you are saying all these quantitative techniques. If you are proposing a quantitative kind of analysis, but then the techniques that you are suggesting are qualitative in nature, so then this will not, you know, uh, will not be appropriate for given kind of study. So you should take care of all these things.
Thank you, sir. It was a very nice interacting with you, and you have spoken rightly, explained about the design that we should undertake so that our research projects or our PhD thesis be completed in time. Thank you, sir, for this session. It was very pleasure for us to have you here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, and I wish all the best for the remaining session and for the program.
Thank you, sir. So, dear participants, we have our next session from Professor Karunesh Saxena. This is second session, and I have already introduced about him to you all. So, Professor Karunesh Saxena is presently the VC of Sangam University, Rajasthan. He had earlier been a professor in MLS University, which is a NAC Grade A. He has been working as a professor. He has been holding various administrative posts such as Director of IQAC, Director of College Development Council, and various other management and administrative positions. He have also been serving as academic position at different universities like Sagar University, Jammu University, Vikram University, Ujjain, and IGNO, New Delhi. He have a very great, means a large experience of around total 32 years of teaching and research. And he, from time to time, he has been a member of expert committee or such as National Higher Education Framework by UGC. He has been a chair professor of ICCR, that is Indian Council of Cultural Relations, Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. He had been an assessor and member of coordinator NAC Bangalore. Under him, 42 scholars have completed their PhDs. He have produced around 200 educational films and e-contents. He have published in referred journals, which is totaling more than 125. He has six books under his credit and a monograph. He has a patent under him, and he has been awarded massive open online courses on business statistics by UGC. He has been an expert resource person in UPSC, NAC, UGC, AICT, and various schools, boards, state and central university. He have also been an advisor consultant of Commonwealth of Learning, CEMCA New Delhi consultant, National Productivity Council, New Delhi. So it is great for us to have him here among us. So, sir, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very much.
Welcome to you, sir. We are waiting eagerly for you. Yes, sir. Please carry on, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. My thanks to Dr. Biplav for adjusting my session, as there was an emergent meeting which I could not refuse, and accordingly he has made the arrangements today morning only. So I am thankful to him. I am also thankful to the preceding speaker, Dr. Panda, who has adjusted to accommodate my lecture for you. Thanks to all of you. Friends, this is a particular session that is of utmost importance to the academicians, mainly because of the fact that everybody wants to write research papers. We all want to write research papers. Only thing is that we have to have a clear roadmap as to how we can develop our research paper, and at the same time, then it helps us in many regards. It enriches your biodata. It gives you the required API for promotion. It gives you wide recognition and all those things. So friends, this particular presentation, which I am going to share with you, has been very widely appreciated. Many of you might be knowing that there is a program called ARPIT, that is Annual Refresher Program in Teaching. And so they offer the refresher course in MOOC form. And in that also I have given this lecture, and also in many other AICT and ICSSR and UGC sponsored programs also this lecture was delivered earlier. So are you ready? Can we begin?
Yes, sir. Please
I
carry
want
on.
some, yeah, thank you, Biplavji, but I want some greater participation from the respondents than yesterday, because yesterday we had 2-3 persons who had discussed things with me, but today I want a much more broad-based discussion, because the topics that I am going to cover are highly relevant for your career progression and career growth. While my introduction was being given, it was mentioned that I have published more than 125 research papers. That number is now crossing 150. And most important of this aspect is that I have crossed a mark of 100 papers after becoming professor. Because what happens is that once a person becomes professor, then they stop, generally they stop contributing, or they slow down and all. But then in my case, I have achieved that landmark last month, when I realized that this is my 100th paper after becoming professor. I became full university professor in 2007. So during the last 14 years or so, 100 papers have come up. So based on all that experience, I want to share my presentation with you. This will be again for roughly around 35 to 40 minutes. And then we are going to have a broad-based discussion. And today I'll really want all of you to come forward and interact with me, unmute your mic, and then give your questions to me. I'll be very happy to answer them. And that way the session will be highly interactive. Yesterday there was some problem in my network, but today I have made all kinds of arrangements, so there will be no such problem. But still, if you face any problem, so Biplav sir, at the same time, immediately you give me a call so that I can make all kinds of arrangements.
Yes, sure, sir.
So friends, this is my topic today, crafting and publishing research paper. Are you able to see my slides in the full screen mode?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, fine. These are the 6.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Voice is not
it
clear.
is.
Biplav
Sir,
sir,
voice is not clear. I think it is.
Okay.
No, sir,
My
it's
network
clear.
or your network, I don't know.
Okay, probably at your end the network might be the issue. If other respondents are able to listen to me, then it will be good. So these are 6 agenda points. One by one, we will take them up. Why do you want to write a research paper? I have already given you an idea that for the sake of promotion, because if you go through the July 2018 regulations of UGC for career advancement, or even if you want to apply afresh for associate professor and professor in the universities and colleges in the open selection, so there also promotion and direct appointment. In both the cases, the minimum number of research papers are required. So without research papers, you cannot hope to either be promoted or be directly selected. Similarly, we have to have, pardon me, this is API. So you get good API score once you get good research papers. So far, so much that if you publish one of your research papers in a very good quality journal, then you can earn as much as 45 marks API score out of one paper only. Similarly, when you want to apply for funding agencies, research projects and all, they also look at your biodata, and they also look at the quality of publication that you have got. I was telling you yesterday that I was expert for UGC STRIDE evaluation committee, and in STRIDE projects, you might be knowing that minimum funding is 50 lakhs and maximum goes up to 5 crores. And so one of the most important criteria for allotment of the funds is the research biodata, research capability of the principal investigator and co-investigator in that project. As I said, that it gives you widespread recognition. Even I may not be physically going or virtually taking lectures and all, but through my papers and publications and my work, people may know me in those locations also where I might never have visited before. So point I am trying to make is that there are a lot of need that we have to have for writing a research paper. But then, what kind of preparation is required? When you have to decide to write a paper, what kind of preparation is required? Friends, last week itself, as Vice Chancellor, I was invited by the local newspaper in their editor's office. The program was Coffee with Editor. And I was asked to give my speech, and so I was remarking, I was commenting that your task is a very difficult one. Why? Because you have the strict deadline. Every day you have to have forced creativity to write newspaper articles, because without fail, tomorrow morning the paper has to be distributed to all these households. So you cannot postpone writing your paper. But when it comes to academics, then I feel that this is the most neglected area of our academic work. Writing a research paper, people keep on postponing, people keep on putting it off for a long time because they feel that it is an avoidable activity. For example, if you have to take a lecture, then timetable is there, students are waiting. In any case, you will have to go and deliver the lecture. But as far as the research paper is concerned, you think साहब आज नहीं लिखा कोई बात नहीं, कल लिख लेंगे, कल शुरू कर देंगे. So that procrastination is the biggest barrier in writing a paper. I have come across many academicians who have not written papers in double digit, or some of them have not written even a single paper. So then when I ask them, then they say that, sir, we start but we can't finish. So that is the problem, because they don't do the proper planning. So proper planning requires, number one, define the area. Broad area, if you define that in which area you want to write a paper. Number two is find out the journals. That is very important. Even before you have started writing the paper, you should find out the appropriate journal. And that journal has to be field specific. It can be an international journal, it can be a national journal. If you are a beginner, if you are just beginning your research work, then you can basically go for your national journals first, because that will give you good practice, and then you can try for international journals later on. Similarly, all these journals and all these good journals, they have their website, and on their websites you can find the instructions for author. So once you are writing the paper, if you have shortlisted one or two journals, and if you have read the instructions for author for the journal, first priority journal, then you can write the paper according to those instructions. Why it is needed to have a field specific journal? About 12 years ago, I was writing a paper with one of my scholars, who is now a professor in Nirma University. And that paper was in the field of the marketing of pharmaceutical products, because that was the paper derived from his PhD thesis. Now we were searching for a good international journal. I told him that you search for the specific journal wherein our paper has great chances of being published. While searching, he could find out the International Journal of Medical Marketing. He found out this journal, International Journal of Medical Marketing, and he wrote the paper as per their guidelines. Of course, there were one or two revisions, but then finally they published our paper, and that was a Web of Science journal. So what I am saying is that because my paper was in pharmaceutical marketing of pharmaceutical products, and I chose a journal of medical marketing, the two complemented very well. So that way, you should identify in which area you are going to write your paper, and secondly, you should be selecting the journal matching that the field of the paper that you are writing. Third aspect is read the instructions for author. When we have to go through the website, we will easily find it. Next point is defining timeline. I told you that we keep on postponing because we don't put any schedules for our paper. So if you can mention strict guidelines, you say that I will be completing first draft by such and such date, then I'll be showing to my co-author or senior or whatever, and then I'll be going ahead with the submission by such and such date. So there can be a postponement of maximum 1 week, but then you must have definite timelines. That definitely helps. You should have a tentative title. Why I have said tentative title? Because two things I write in the end. One is the finalization of the title, and second is the abstract. These two things I take up only when I have written the complete paper. So friends, we were just talking about that why do we need to write a paper? This is our agenda. And so we were talking about why do we need to write a paper regarding promotion, API, funds, recognition, and so on. Then we were discussing about the planning stage for writing a paper. Now, like I said that find out the journals. This was the second step here. So what should be the criteria for the journal? A good journal is essential for your publication, because there are so many problems. There are spurious journals, there are fake journals, there are cloned journals. So you will be, sometimes there are predatory journals. So many a time the young academicians, they become victim of these malpractices by those people who are out to get your money. When you want to identify a good journal, you must at the least go for UGC care list of journals. The problem with the UGC care list is that when you are publishing your paper, it is there in the UGC care list, and later on after 6 months or 1 year when you visit, again you find that the journal has either been removed or whatever. But at the time when you have published the paper, if it was in the UGC care list and if you have taken the screenshots and all the what you can call all the precautions you have taken, and so you will be given credit for the publication in UGC Care, even though later on it has been removed from the website or from the list of UGC Care. Apart from UGC Care, you can go for Scopus Index, you can go for Web of Science, you can go for Emerald, and there are many indexing agencies, but go for good journal. And good journal means that journal whose impact factor is high. Now, this impact factor business is also quite tedious. As far as the science is concerned, they go by only the Thomson-Reuters approved impact factor. But in social science and management and commerce, still the things are not so well defined. And so whatever a good journal is claiming as its impact factor, we will accept that. Listed journals, I have already told you. For management, we have ABDC list of journals also. That is Australian Business Dean Council's list of journals. That is a good this thing, having good recognition in the. If you want to apply in the IAMS also, then also you will require publications in these good quality journals. The journals must be properly indexed in so many electronic data resources, and so Scopus is one such this thing, indexing service itself, and so indexing plays very important role. The least you can do is that the journal must have ISSN. ISSN for journal and ISBN for book. If you are contributing to an edited book, then please ensure that at least it has ISBN number. Because without ISBN or ISSN number, you will not get any kind of credit, neither you will get any API score for publication in those. Publishing process, you always know that before writing you have so many steps, but when finally you submit, then the paper is sent for referee, and referees suggest some revisions, and these revisions are very, very useful because these referees are quite senior persons. I am a referee to many journals, and so including some very good journals which are published from India and abroad. So I receive papers from these journals, and then once I go through them, then I can suggest that these are the revision areas and revision points and all. Secondly, if it is not at all up to the mark or not fitting in the scope of the journal, even we can suggest for rejection, outright rejection also. But the revision, whatever we suggest, that must be carried out by the authors, because that improves the quality of your writing. In some of my papers, when I sent them for international journals for publishing, then these reviewers were so generous that not only they told me that you have not covered these studies in your review of literature or in your paper, they also used to attach those full papers. ये पेपर आपने अपने उसमें रेफर नहीं किए, साइट नहीं किए, तो हम पेपर भेज रहे हैं, आप इनको पढ़ के साइट कर दीजिए. So that much helpful these reviewers can be. Once you have carried out the revisions, and these revisions are, every journal has a policy that within the given timeline, you have to submit the paper once again after taking care of the revision. And in most of the cases, the revision is done in the track change mode. And so then afterwards, when you are able to address the queries of the referees, then the paper is accepted and finally published. So this is the whole process for publishing in a journal. Now the question arises in our mind that how many types of publications that can be there. First would be the article. Article again of two types. One is the news article and other is the research article. So when I was commenting in that newspaper's office, then I meant that you people are going to the field, observing some phenomena, then preparing a report and writing a newspaper report, and then putting it in the newspaper next day. Other than that, there are analytical articles also, editorial page articles which carry some kind of analysis. Then we can also write as a academician, we can write research articles. Research articles means what we are doing is that we are actually selecting a contemporary and relevant topic, the emerging topic we are selecting, and then based on that topic, then what we are doing is that we are doing citations, and then we are actually writing a paper with references and all. Then we have empirical paper. As you know very well, empirical papers are those papers where you develop your own instrument or questionnaire, you collect data, you analyze that data, and then you write a paper based on that analysis of the primary data, and so that is called empirical research. These are highly in demand, especially if you are able to use multivariate analysis, structure equation modeling, factor analysis, and so on. And so in a research paper, if you can do all that, then any good journal can take up your paper for publishing. But then the last category is the review paper. Now, review papers are based on qualitative research. Here, the primary data is not collected. Only the secondary data-based papers are called review papers. And this review paper is again not an easy thing, because here you are studying a lot of literature, and then out of that literature, then you are trying to develop your own review paper, and you are also writing a synthesis, so that what has been your understanding after reading all these papers. So that is before conclusion we can do the synthesis of the review, also synthetic review we can say. So that is what it is. 3 types of papers what I have told you. Double-blind peer review guidelines are there, but then we can skip them. Basically, I want to tell you that before starting to write the paper, select the journal, read their instructions for authors, and then write your paper strictly according to those guidelines. So that is what is double-blind peer review. What does it mean? It means that it will go to 2 referees, and so double and then blind means your name and your title of the paper will not be disclosed to them, so it becomes blind review. And peer review, because it will go to the your seniors in the academic field only, so they are your peers. So basically, that is why it is called double-blind peer review technique for evaluation of paper before taking a decision whether to publish it or not. Now I come to the last part of my lecture, that is parts of research paper. This is very important part also, because here you need a title, topic on the top, then abstract, then keyword. We should not forget the keyword which we should mention in the bracket after the abstract, then introduction, then literature review, then research methodology, then results, then discussion, conclusion, and references. So from the topic to the references, that is the complete paper. And this is, I have taken up the template of a empirical paper, so that to make the things clear to you. Abstract is very, very important. Reason being that every good journal asks for abstract. In their instructions for authors also, they will mention that please write abstract of your paper in 200 to 300 words, or maybe maximum 500 words, not more than that. But most popular length is 200 to 300 words. As I told you that abstract comes in the beginning, but is written after the paper is completed. So once I have completed the paper, then I can write the abstract. So here, what happens is that we will have to put the essential information in this abstract as to what are the major objectives, what methods are adopted, what major results are there, what major suggestions are there, what major conclusions are there. In other words, we can cover each and every section in 1 or 2 sentences here in abstract. And like I said, that keywords are very, very important, because your keywords will help you in getting more and more citations. After, you remember that we are talking about the parts of research paper. So abstract, keyword we have discussed. Now we come to introduction. Introduction is the introduction of your research paper, and here you are trying to give brief introduction of your topic and the importance that this subject has and why you are writing the paper on this subject. So that is basically the significance and importance of the topic which you are covering in your paper. Also, you need to develop an overview, a macro view of the research problem or the problem on which you are writing the paper. And so, basically, it also provides a roadmap to the reader, because then in this introductory para, the last paragraph, you will be highlighting that how this what you can call, what other sections will follow in this particular research paper, so the reader gets an idea what to expect in subsequent sections. Next section would be literature review. Literature review means now here we are reviewing the literature, and if it is an empirical paper, then it will be a limited review that we do. But if it is a paper, of review paper, then we will be having significant number of articles and research papers that we will be including here. So, how much will be the length of this section will depend upon whether you are writing an empirical paper or you are writing a review paper. And of course, good paper is one where you can develop and identify the gap. Then comes the next section. As I said, that we are doing it, we are developing a template for an empirical paper, which is quite commonly written. So that is why I have chosen this. Research methodology will cover that who will be the participants. That means what kind of universe we are talking about, what kind of population, relevant population we are talking about, what kind of sample this thing will consist of which participants and all. What will be the procedure for sampling, so sampling method and all those things. What will be the procedure for data collection in terms of whether you are developing a questionnaire on an instrument. So that will be that could be in the form of measurement scales and all. Then you will be also focusing on analytics, that what kind of statistical techniques you will be using for analyzing the collected data, all those things. Reliability and validity of the instrument through which you are collecting the data will also be, methods will also be discussed here. Results will be discussed in the next section, but which methods of reliability and validity you are using for your questionnaire and instrument, that you will be mentioning here. Similarly, next section would be on results. So you can say analysis of results. You can give the heading. So basically, you will give the results of data analysis. You will start with the descriptive analysis, and then you will move to testing. And if you are doing univariate, bivariate, multivariate analysis, so whatever techniques you have already identified, and you have done the statistical analysis. So this is the section where you are reporting your analyzed data, basically. So like I said, presentation of descriptive statistics, then inferential statistics also you can do. Like I told you that RTC testing results, etc. you can mention. Interpretation, the focus will be on interpretation, because if any particular null hypothesis is accepted, why? What could be the reason? If it is rejected, why? What could have been the reason? So that is how the result section is, or analysis of result section is written. Then we have to discuss, we come to the nearly the last section, that is discussion of the conclusion. So in science research paper, we find a separate section on discussion, because they try to correlate their findings with the findings of other researchers and authors. But in your case of social science, commerce and management, what you can do is that you can do some discussion in the conclusion paragraph only, or conclusion subsection only. So here you are trying to give explanation to findings. You are trying to mention what are the theoretical and practical implications of the findings that you have obtained, limitations of your work that can also be covered here. So this is how we have been proceeding section by section. Now we come to the last section, that is the references. That is very important. As a discipline, we must ensure that whatever we have cited inside the research papers, you must be referred. There has to be one-to-one correspondence. मान लीजिए आपने 15 पेपर साइट किए हैं तो 15 रेफरेंसेस होना चाहिए, कैन नॉट वेरी. Similarly, you should refer to the particular journal and their guidelines, and the guidelines invariably mention that follow falana falana style of referencing. For social science, APA style of referencing is most common. APA is American Psychology Collective. For language, particularly English, MLA style is common, that is Modern Language Association, or Chicago style of referencing. There. Now, basically, you have to understand that whatever we are writing, we must be very, very careful to avoid plagiarism. And so, it is a good practice that when you are writing, you do paraphrasing, you write, you read so many research papers and all, but then you try to develop your own understanding and you give your own language to it. And at the same time, you can give the citation also, even though you are using your own language, but you can give the citations also there. One more good practice is that once your draft is ready, first draft, then go through it, make the revisions, make the changes, do spell check, grammar check, do the final draft, then run it through a anti-plagiarism software. Now, you will ask me which one, so it could be either Turnitin or Urdu. Any of the two will do, Turnitin or Urdu. So then, the report similarity index is given, and if it is too high, then you will be knowing from which section the similarity is coming too much, and so you can go through them. You can do some editing, you can eliminate some of the redundant ones, you can rewrite if they are essential ones, and again go on checking it. So in a reiterated procedure, then you will get the required similarity index that is below 10%, and then you can submit the paper for publishing. Because every good journal takes it through their own anti-plagiarism software, so it is even better if you can find out which software they are using, and if you can run it through the same software, so it will be easier for them also. Sometimes you can attach the report as well. Sometimes they may skip doing the anti-plagiarism check at their end and may rely on the report that you have submitted. Formatting requirements: the paper must be professionally prepared. So a professional typist should be given the final draft so that he can do the proper layouting and all, and so it looks good also. Web presence: select those journals which are having web presence. Web presence means that they are easy to be referred and cited by others. Then there are UGC regulations for plagiarism, which came out in 2018. I will not cover this in detail. Only thing I can tell you is that you can go through these guidelines which are available on internet and ensure that you comply with them. When we are talking about research paper writing, then up to 10% similarity comes under level 0, and so minor similarities are there, no penalty is imposed, and then you may be allowed to publish also. Level 1 is that when the similarities are greater than 10% and up to 40%, so you will be asked to withdraw your manuscript. क्या आप इसको हटा दीजिए, ये हम publish नहीं करेंगे. Similarity is above 40 to 60%, so you will be asked to withdraw manuscript, and also if it is reported to your employer in your organization, then maybe you can lose one increment. And also you can be debarred for 2 years from becoming supervisor or guide for master's, MPhil, PhD student. Nowadays, in the new education policy, MPhil has been discontinued, so no problem. Level 3 is where similarity is above 60%. So then they become even more tough. That withdrawal of manuscript is there. Rather than 1-2 successive annual increments will be stopped. Similarly, that person will not be allowed to be a supervisor for the next 3 years. So these are some of the salient points of the anti-plagiarism mechanism that UGC has developed in 2018. So that's all I wanted to share with you. I'll share 1 or 2 videos with you before proceeding any further. Then we will have a small question answer.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, maybe one question we are asking you. What are types of impact factor?
Yeah. I'll come to that. Can I show you a video first?
Yes. I can see the video.
Okay, thank you. You let me know once you get the video and the audio and video both. Is it coming?
Sir, audio is not coming, sir.
Audio is not coming? Okay. So let me reshare it in that case. Just a second. Let me reshare it. And to stop presenting. Share again.
Yes, sir. Now it's coming.
Now it's yes.
सर आपके लिए उस पार कार का इंतजाम किया है सर आइए सर ये चल
I hate this country.
चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले तुम चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले तुम चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले तुम चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले लगा हाथ के सूरज सुबह निकाला करे हथेलियों में भरे धूप और उछाला करे पाँव रखो और चलो पकड़ के चलो, फलक पकड़ के उठो और हवा पकड़ के चलो, फलक पकड़ के उठो और हवा पकड़ के चलो। तुम चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले, तुम चलो तो हिंदुस्तान चले, हिंदुस्तान चले। चलो।
So this was regarding being proactive. This young boy, he did not bother about anyone else. Many times we complain that what we can do alone, the system is like that and all that. But this boy did not wait for anyone to give him any motivation. He was proactive. Then others also joined hands. So similarly, I am telling you that when you are writing a paper, you need a lot of self-motivation and self-discipline. Yes, so the question was coming, please introduce yourself and then ask your question. It was regarding impact factor. Can you repeat that by giving your introduction first?
Shripad sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes. I have one question. Ask we sir. What are types of impact factor?
Yes, actually, as an academician, one must have a Google Scholar profile, right? So as far as the authors are concerned, then we talk about citation index. So what citation index is for an author, same the impact factor is there for a journal. Now, what happens is that how the citation index is developed for an author. For example, I write a particular paper. It is published in very good journal. Now you are writing a paper in the same area. You punch in keywords. If they matches with my keyword, and then they will be showing you my paper. You will download, you will read, and then you will cite my paper in your paper. And so more and more I am cited, my citation index will go on increasing, and my H index, which is the measure for Google Scholar profile, will go on increasing. So that is citation index for author. Now, similarly, what happens for impact factor of a journal, that in the previous 3 years, how many papers published in that journal were cited by other authors of other journals. And so more and more papers are referred by others. So then the journal's impact factor rises. And it is variable. It is variable year to year, it can change. So it is like that. Good question.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks. Heartily thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please. Like I said, we'll have an interactive session. So I need more and more questions.
Participants, please ask some questions. Sir is waiting.
दोन्ही सेशनला प्रश्न विचारला.
I am sure that you have many questions in your mind because this is such a topic. This is such a topic which you want, which you feel that you must know. It is really important for developing your career. Even if you have to submit your thesis, you require 1 or 2 publications in good quality journals and all that. So at every stage of your academic career, you need to publish papers. Please go ahead.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. Please introduce.
My name is Turaj Borua. So I am a student of MCOM from Department of Commerce, University of Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, actually, I am now studying in MCOM, so I am learning to write research papers. But sir, my question is that my major is, sir, accounts and finance. So will it be beneficial for me to write other domain research papers like marketing, entrepreneurship?
Actually, in the early stages of your career, you must focus on your core specialization area so that you are able to develop your standing there. And later on, you can expand into interdisciplinary areas. For example, you can write a paper on HR accounting. So you continue to serve your basic specialization of accounting, but then you are developing interdisciplinary linkages with human resources. So this is how you should proceed actually. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Great. Go ahead. Next.
Sir, my name is Ravinder Kumar Bhatia.
Yes.
Sir, I search on UGC care list. There is no journal for commerce. So can I write paper in finance also? Because there is no journal. 1 year earlier, I saw that there is no journal of commerce in UGC care list.
Ravindji, where are you working?
Sir, I am working in Government Degree College, Haripur Nesta, Raebareli, UP.
Okay. To the best of my knowledge, Indian Journal of Commerce, which is the official journal of All India Commerce Association, is there in UGC care list. So you can check that again. And if you find Indian Journal of Commerce, then that is the most authenticated one for writing papers in the field of commerce. But otherwise, also, what you can do is that you can write papers in the journals of management. You can write papers in the journals of even social science. You can write the journal papers in the journals of multidisciplinary nature also, as long as they are listed in UGC care or they are Scopus indexed or good quality journal. Is that clear?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next, please. We have
Any
time.
participants have any more questions? I think, sir, everyone is clear of your lecture.
But that is the real drawback of the online system, because in a physical mode, then we would have compelled some of the participants to break their silence and become participative. Here you can keep on calling their names. They may either not be available to respond or they may choose not to respond. So that is really something which I don't like in a non-responsive audience.
Yes, next time we shall definitely do offline, sir. That will be better. Okay, dear participants, we thank sir for his nice and lucid explanations of how to draft or craft a quality research paper. Sir is well experienced and well qualified for this session. So thank you, sir, again for coming onto this platform, and we'll keep in contact with you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Wish you all good luck in your research endeavors, in your academic career. I am available to you whenever you require any kind of help from my side. All my profile is available on Google also, and so you can connect with me whenever you need any help. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So participants, we have come for a break now, and we shall meet at 2 o'clock for our next session. So thank you, everyone.